This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays, because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. Yes, you might notice something different about the avatar today. All things considered in the world, I thought a little levity might be worthwhile, so I've brought up Piggy Scribe. Yes, Piggy Scribe. Do you not know about Piggy Scribe? Well, let me tell you about Piggy Scribe. A friend of mine a long time ago did a sketch of my avatar as a pig. Cute little sketch. This was several years ago. And then just the other day, she decided to run it through ChatGPT and said, hey, turn this into like an actual painting. And this was the result. And I gotta tell you, it's pretty sweet. I gotta tell you, it's pretty cool looking. And I was impressed. So I was like, well, hell, I gotta do something with that. So, decided to make an alternate avatar just for the heck of it. I used it on Frosted Glass's show the other night, but yeah, just for the sake of, again, levity, a little lightness, given the events of the world. Today we're going to have Piggy Scribe. Oh, Piggy Scribe. But hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. Who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Scrolling all the way up to the top. Holy cow, so much activity. Shady Grin. Good morning. Old Guy Gamer. Good morning. Walter Tomaszewski. Good morning. Who else is here? Snortapoopas Cuber. Good morning. Jill Powers, the River Daughter. Good morning. Who else is here? Scrolling. Angela Ariaga. Good morning. We got Keeverdam. Good morning, Keeverdam. And thank you, Keeverdam, for, as always, providing the links to the GoFundMes for our friends Twisted Skipster and Angela Ariaga. Guys at the top of the chat box, pinned up there, the GoFundMes. Twisted Skipster is raising money for his daughter's wrestling club. Angela Ariaga is raising money for her home-based business. Please take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. But even if you can't, if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated as well. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links. Who else is here? Random American, good morning. And scrolling. Keep that chat scrolling. Alexander, good morning. The Blue-Eyed Scream, 76. Good morning. And Sabian187, hello. Toot Sweet, good morning. Mykar, hello. Kiro Soldier, good morning. John Trioxin, good morning to you. And Davina Duckworth, good morning. Your internet's favorite lunatic, hello. Boy, oh boy, people just keep popping in. Keldrig, good morning. Robert Pincus, good morning. Resolute Germ, hello. Bridget. Good morning. Did you all see that history lesson of a military parade? I did not, actually. A bunch of things happened yesterday, both in the news and in real life, and I got just all sorts of scattered and distracted and stuff. So that's one thing I did miss. Funtime Bats, good morning. Let's see, who else is here? Anybody else? Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Morgan King, good morning. Kirsten Scholl over on the X Machine. Yes, everyone, I am simulcasting over on X, so if you have an X account and you see this on X, please do retweet it on X. JB, good morning. Corey Suzuki, hello. Hope you're having a good day. Anybody else? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Judge Ugly, good morning. And I think that's everybody. If I miss you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good morning. Also, before I get any further, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I'll be calling my father after this show because I'm assuming he's probably still sleeping and resting up. We'll be visiting him and the mother unit next weekend. So there will decidedly not be a Saturday stream next weekend because I'll be off and running again to visit the folks. But, yep, also in Juliet, good evening to you where you are. All right, so, yeah, what hasn't happened in the last 3 or 4 days? Good gravy. We've got Iran and Israel. We've got all the protests. We had the assassination happen over in Minnesota. We had all types of stuff. All types of stuff. I don't know that I can add to it any more than anyone else already has, but they are the things on my mind, so I'm going to go over some things that are obviously oversaturated in the media right now just because I'm still trying to wrap my head around a lot of it. I've also got a couple of stories about some other things that are unrelated to all that, if you can believe it. But which shall we start with first? Oh, how about... let's do something that was a bit more ridiculous. I don't need to talk about Middle Eastern conflicts or anything. But let's talk about Mr. Padilla. Let's talk about what happened to Mr. Padilla, or what Mr. Padilla had happened to himself. So when the protests started up the other day, I was watching all types of different streams and news feeds and stuff about it because I was curious what's going to happen, who's going to do what, and so on. And I was watching live when this happened. So if you don't know, Kristi Noem, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, was giving a press conference when all of a sudden somebody started yelling at her and moving towards the podium. And that person was immediately restrained and removed. And I was like, wow, how did one of the protesters get into this press conference with all these high-level individuals? Well, it wasn't a protester. Well, it was. But it was a public servant. A public servant I didn't recognize at all. Like, everybody knows who this person is. Like, I had no idea who he was. He looked like just one other wackadoo trying to cause a scene. But let's take a look at what the mainstream media is saying about this. And as we do so, and I haven't read this particular article yet, but as we do so, let's think to ourselves, if it had been a Democratic official behind the podium and a right-wing politician / activist coming towards the podium, what do you think they'd be saying? MSNBC, what happened to Padilla was shocking, and the MAGA response has been ominous. The thugification of the Trump administration is not a new phenomenon, but it has rarely been so graphically on display. Ahem. Let's take a look at this. On Thursday, Senator Alex Padilla of California was forcibly removed from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's news conference in Los Angeles. The Democrat was pushed to the ground and handcuffed by federal agents. You're right. You're right. That did happen. Now, are you going to go into detail on what preceded that event? The scene was appalling. Well, I agree, but not the part that you're talking about. The thugification of the Trump administration is not a new phenomenon, but it has rarely been so graphically on display. What happened to Padilla was shocking, but what has been far more shocking and more ominous has been the response. It was certainly possible that there was a misunderstanding and that the FBI agents accompanying Noem simply didn't know who the senator was. Hey, you know what? It doesn't matter who the senator was. It doesn't matter. In the middle of a press conference, this guy decided to move towards the podium, shouting at the secretary and trying to push his way past security. It doesn't matter who he was. He could have been the King of Venus, and security would have stopped him. And his fighting against security and trying to lunge forward through security would have just resulted in the same thing. Oh my gosh. Didn't know who the senator was. In a normal universe, those agents and Noem would admit they got it wrong and apologize. Apologize for what? But they didn't, because in this administration, not only do they never apologize, they continue to escalate. Noem said Padilla was lunging forward. He was, and did not identify himself during the news conference. Video of the incident shows Padilla did indeed state he was a U.S. senator. Yeah, after he had approached the podium, after he had shouted at the secretary, and after he was already fighting against security. But even if he had, he didn't have any right to storm the press conference. And he didn't have any right to fight security and try to push past security. If he wanted to wait his turn for question and answer period, fine. But he didn't. He was showboating and showing off. And he effed around and he effed out, as it were. And also, I don't know if they'll mention it in this article. You know what happened almost immediately after that event? Yeah, Padilla held his own press conference outside. And you know how many people rushed his podium and tried to interrupt him and shout him down? Nobody. I wonder what would have happened if someone had tried to. I wonder what his reaction would have been. I wonder what security's reaction would have been. Let's see. Nome said Padilla was lunging forward and did not identify himself. Yeah, Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino defended his agents, writing on X that they, quote, acted completely appropriately. Bongino also said he was grateful for their professionalism and service. Yeah. Someone's rushing a federal official on a stage. I made this point on X to much debate from people who would argue with me. I said, I think there's probably a very low risk tolerance at this point after, I don't know, a little event that happened in Butler, Pennsylvania last year. Maybe just people aren't willing to take a risk that somebody's doing something goofy. Because someone claiming to be a public official, not necessarily being trustworthy in their intentions towards another public official. We'll get to a story about that. Very tragic story still ongoing in a couple of minutes. Keldrake, thank you so much. This is the senator's fault, not the FBI's. It's absolutely absurd that they insist this is the Trump administration's fault. Yeah. Padilla wanted to make a scene. He wanted to be the star of the show. And like I said, F around, found out. This is what happened. And then it turns out, and again, as I said, just flip the script. If that had been Chuck Schumer standing at that podium, and, I don't know, J.D. Vance had decided to rush the podium or something. Or, I don't know. I can't think of a comparable Republican official. Marjorie Taylor Greene. There you go. Marjorie Taylor Greene decides to shout down Chuck Schumer and rush towards the podium, fighting security. What do you think would have happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene? The same thing. The same thing. And if you watch the video, you will see he tried to push and fight and fight back against those guys, and they just finally said nope, and they shoved him out. And it's really kind of funny because he was trying to get his question out, and he was like, there were a dozen people that, wait a second, get your hands off me. Let's just go over a little bit more of this, and then we'll move on. Then there's House Speaker Mike Johnson, who said Padilla should be censured. Quote, I think that behavior at a minimum rises to the level of a censure, Johnson told reporters on Thursday. Well, it certainly wasn't professional behavior. It certainly wasn't mature behavior. It was not behavior that would be becoming a public representative, as far as I'm concerned. And again, just imagine, put any other Republican official in Padilla's place. What would the Democrats be saying about that person? I bet they'd be saying something like unhinged, shocking, violent, and on and on and on. Quote, I think there needs to be a message sent by the body as a whole that this is not what we're going to do. That's not how we're going to act, unquote. Right, that was Johnson speaking. Back to our author. The fact that they are embracing and celebrating this shocking episode and making Padilla appear like the one who took things too far tells you the direction that we're heading in. Can you see the gaslighting? Can you smell the gaslighting here? They are trying to desensitize us. They're trying to desensitize us? You're trying to tell me that what Padilla was completely normal and acceptable. You're telling me that fighting against Secret Service and security personnel, rushing towards a podium of a federal official, that's perfectly fine. That's nothing that should be discouraged or censured. No, that's fine. They are trying to desensitize us, they are trying to numb us, and they are trying to normalize these kinds of abuses. Look in the mirror, Charlie Sykes. Remember, this is an administration that not only threatened to arrest a sitting Democratic governor, but has already arrested a state judge and a Democratic mayor. Yeah, why did they arrest that state judge? Oh, it's because she committed a crime. Why are they threatening to arrest a Democratic governor? Oh, because he's assisting in crimes being committed. And a Democratic mayor. Yeah, because Karen Bass and Newsom have been derelict in their duties and have been passively assisting criminals in resisting ICE, along with rioters and so on. Yeah, I know. And who's trying to desensitize? Who's trying to reset the clock on this kind of behavior? After Thursday's incident, Padilla stressed an important point. Oh, did he? Oh, what's his important point? If this is how the administration treats a sitting United States senator, how will they treat the average citizen? I don't know. Shall we test those waters? Do you want... Okay, well, this is just inviting this kind of behavior to happen to a Democratic official, which I hope it doesn't. Because this is not the kind of behavior that we're supposed to be encouraging. But this is the kind of behavior that Charlie Sykes, Padilla, and everybody else, apparently, on one side of the aisle thinks is perfectly fine. This is perfectly fine behavior. It just... And man, and the people on Twitter the other day, when I was like, this is not what should be happening. Let's violently rush towards a podium of a federal official fighting against Secret Service and security, and then complain that they were mishandled. Like the gaslighting. Oh, that's not what happened. What do you mean violently rush towards it? There's no violence there. Here's the definition of violence. Violence is meant to do this, that, and the other. You mean fighting against people is not violent? Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind. Thanks for that. Yeah, I honestly had someone arguing with me that Padilla pushing back against security and have like 3 different guys holding him and he's lunging forward, that wasn't violent. That his actions were not violent. Oh, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, I did my usual thing where I said, fighting against security officers to try to approach a federal official is not an act of violence. Got it. And they're like, well, violence is this, that, and the other. I said, no. I heard you the first time. This kind of behavior is not violent. You don't need to keep re-explaining to me why you think this is perfectly fine. I get you. I'm not imagining I'm going to change your mind. You're certainly not going to change mine. But I understand where you're coming from. You're fine with this. Everything's fine. Okay. So now, like I say, in a comically appropriate world, the exact same situation would occur in front of a Democratic official, and we'd see how it would play out. See, I don't want that to happen, right? I don't want people acting violently towards public officials. Even if it's somebody you disagree with, that's not what we're supposed to be doing in this country. It is low and it is cowardly to take violent action against someone because you disagree with their opinion. That's not how it's supposed to work in a civilized society. And yet there are uncivilized people amongst us, as you know. But before I get onto that, and I think you know where I'm going with this one. Let's see what you guys have to say. Fine, he aggressively approached the podium. Yeah, exactly. He sauntered painstakingly with aggression towards the podium. K. Roberts, they don't believe in average citizens to represent and serve. They only see subjects they are entitled to control. That or, proxies by which they can get their message across and wipe their hands of any responsibility for encouragement. One of the two. Blue-eyed Scream, what's the big deal? It's not like there's nut jobs taking shots at officials. I know. I really wonder if the Padilla thing had happened, say, today, rather than on Thursday. I wonder what the press would be saying in light of recent events. But speaking of recent events, let's take a look at that. First, I'd like to showcase something that I saw yesterday. So, if you did not know, yesterday, an individual posing as a police officer in full uniform, apparently, and either a cobbled together police car or perhaps a police car that was attained at an auction or something and done up to look like an active police car, rolled up on the houses of two different state representatives, I think it was, or state senators, I'll get it right here in a minute, in Minnesota, and shot both them and their spouses. As of this broadcast, one of the pair died and the other pair are alive but seriously injured. We'll get into the details in a moment. But I was particularly struck in the early hours of this, though maybe not surprised, by how the media sort of relayed the information on the individual that they suspected had done this. Because in relatively short order, and I was surprised by this, an identity was known, and an affiliation of this person was made plain. And yet the AP, in trying to notify the public at the time about what was happening, was strangely abstract. Breaking! Authorities are searching for a 57-year-old man suspected of shooting two Minnesota lawmakers, AP sources said. A 57-year-old man? Well, with that information, boy, I can figure it out real quick. Now, I haven't looked at this article since yesterday, but they didn't even mention the name of the suspect until like 3 or 4 paragraphs into the story. And as far as I recall, at that time, they didn't even put up a picture of the suspect to alert people as to who it was that was suspected of having done this. Just a 57-year-old man. When this first happened, I saw, as always with things like this, a lot of immediate speculation. Well, you know, both of the politicians were Democrats. Oh, here comes MAGA. Here comes MAGA trying to cleanse the world or something. Some nutjob right-winger, obviously. And here's a lesson for everyone. When something like this happens, you know, if you want to speculate, hey, by all means do so. Just understand that your knee-jerk reaction might not turn out to be accurate, so you might want to wait till more information comes out, which is what I did, what a lot of smart people did. They waited. I'll get to the revelation, which you all already know here in a moment, but first, Keeverdam, thank you so much. Is today's outro going to be that's all, folks? No, because that would get me a copyright claim, Keeverdam. No, it's gonna be the classic outro. Besides, unlike certain anthropomorphized pigs, and I do mean certain anthropomorphized pigs, I'm wearing pants. I'm a proper gentleman pig. Thank you very much. Not some kind of exhibitionist. Moving on. Let's take a look at the current story here. So, this is kind of a sidewise story to the events. But I just was caught by the title. So, how a little girl at a Minnesota No Kings protest and rally summed up a horrible day. Most of the people attending a protest in my Minnesota town didn't know a DFL lawmaker had been killed and another wounded until it was announced over a loudspeaker. It's amazing how uninformed people are who are going to a No Kings rally. This is by Michael Tisserand, Minnesota-based author of Crazy, with a K, and Sugarcane Academy. Never heard of either. This is the author speaking. I was almost giddy Saturday morning while driving to the No Kings rally in my west central Minnesota town of Alexandria. I had reason to hope that Indivisible, which had planned the rally, oh, so it was AstroTurf, you say, all right, would turn out 1,000 protesters in Douglas County, despite our county having voted for Donald Trump by a 2-1 margin. And I was still replaying in my head the events of Friday night when my wife and I attended the annual Minnesota DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor, Humphrey Mondale dinner, where Governor Tim Walz, Senators Amy Klobuchar, and Tina Smith and others spoke. My hoping for a good turnout and my replaying the previous night's speeches in my head was violently interrupted by a news report on the radio that Minnesota House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark had been fatally shot in their home in Brooklyn Park, and that State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette had also been shot. More than 1,000 people did show up at Alexandria's Veterans Memorial Park, Indivisible estimated. Well, you know, if there's ever a reliable source in the world, it's a organization that artificially generates protest marches for no kings in a country that hasn't ever had a king and cannot have a king under the way the Constitution operates, but whatever. Most of whom didn't know that DFL lawmakers had been killed and wounded until it was announced over a loudspeaker. Okay. Did they also get the notice that everybody should stay away from such protests in that area that day because of what was found in the shooter's car? You know what was found in the shooter's car? Yeah, no Kings flyers. Minnesota is not a place where grief gets loud. The crowd fell silent at the news of the politically inspired killings, and I saw people holding quiet conversations with one another. I wonder what they were discussing. We collectively observed a moment of silence for the victims. Then we fanned out along Alexandria's main street. And as we stood and waved, cars honked. Most of them were supportive, a few decidedly were not. Maybe they weren't that they were not supportive, but going like, maybe that was a warning. There's a killer on the loose, and he is apparently affiliated with your organization. And my laughing is the gallows humor kind here, because there's a certain level of self-preservation and common sense that seems to have departed our speaker here. We watched the cars pass and talked about Representative Hortman. Some had met her, some had worked with her, and all of us shook our heads at a state and country where things like this happen. Oh yeah, they just happen. That's why everybody was so shocked, is because these things just happen all the time. Okay. There's a photograph of the Hortmans from Friday night's DFL dinner. It may be the last photograph for which they ever posed together. They are frozen in that moment, smiling. His collar is open. Her jacket is buttoned. Are her shoes also tied? Okay. I'm somewhere in the blurry background. Well, I'm glad you saved centering yourself for the third point in this. I never met them. Still, we may have crossed paths unawares. So again, trying to associate yourself as best as you can. My wife worked at a Brooklyn Park pediatric clinic near the Hortman's house. Okay. And there's every chance I saw Hortman at the frenetic Minnesota State Fair DFL booth. I guess there's a chance that you can more associate yourself with a tragedy that has absolutely nothing to do with you, but keep going, I guess. After growing up in Alexandria, I lived most of my adult life in Louisiana. You know what? I don't care. I don't care. So we talk about your background, Paul Wellstone. Okay, in my town, George Flurd. We get to... Wait, what? Okay, I guess I'll have to bet. In my town, I'm sometimes introduced to a person I don't know with the endorsement, quote, "That's a strong DFLer," unquote. You know, if somebody put out the letters to me, DFL, my immediate, third grade brain would go to DSL and the third grade interpretation of those letters, and I try to figure out what DFL means in a completely innuendo sexual context. So, I don't know. If somebody says you're DFLer, I mean, like down something, lips. I don't know. Those words mean something about our values and how we live them, okay? Melissa Hortman was a strong DFLer. She was a leader for abortion rights and gender-affirming care. Well, all respect to the dead, I definitely would not have voted for her. She worked for gun safety legislation. After George Floyd was murdered, she led police reform efforts. When Governor Walz was running for vice president and highlighting legislation that had improved the lives of children and families in Minnesota, he was talking about the work he'd done alongside Hortman. Great. What does this have to do with anything? You could, okay. Yeah. Okay. Though Saturday's political violence may threaten to extinguish that hope, I know that tomorrow we'll get back to work in our local DFL. There's a table at the Pride Festival to staff. A booth at our county fair to set up. There's a dark hallway in the back of the grandstand where discussions about reproductive freedom can get drowned out by stock car races. Hey guys, ignore the cars for a minute. Let's talk about killing babies. Most challenging of all, we need to find candidates to take on Republican incumbents, no matter the odds. Someone who can face a campaign the way Melissa Hortman did over and over. Sadness about the news hasn't started to settle in, even as a suspect's name and brief biography begin to emerge. Yeah, you want to talk about that? At all? Just a little bit? No? Okay. We gathered Saturday morning to protest, among other things, a president who has encouraged and pardoned political violence. Okay, so you're going to take a guy that has experienced both directly and almost 2 assassination attempts as someone who has encouraged and pardoned political violence. You don't even know what you're talking about, do you? Okay. Even when hope is elusive, we'll have to get by on determination. Near the end of Saturday's rally, which you continued to participate in despite the dangers to yourself and anybody else around you, I saw a family with 3 children walking back to their car. The youngest was still carrying a sign that seemed to sum up this day. I deserve better, it read. Yeah, a sign shoved into her hands by her activist parents. She does. Minnesota does. We all do. Oh, the bravery. Guys, the bravery. I am the stunned. I cannot describe to you just how bravely stunned I'm just. It's overwhelming. It really is. The stun, the brave. Body's not even cold, and they're already politicizing the assassination. I know. You know what? Here's the thing. I'll make it plain. I think I've said something like this before. I couldn't care less what the person's motivation was unless there are other people involved. If it's some kind of grand conspiracy, if there's 2 or more other participants involved in this that are planning on doing other things, only in that sense do I care what their motivation was, what their connection was, what their affiliations might be, and so on. That's it. Only as an investigatory tool to stop any further violence. Outside of that, there's no justification for it. It wouldn't matter to me what side of the political spectrum the suspect was on. What their motivation was. It's all wrong. It's all detestable. And ideally, they should be caught and prosecuted. I got a feeling that's probably not going to be the case with this guy, but I hope it is, not because I love the guy, but because we need to have these examples set publicly. I don't like it when these guys effectively escape justice with a quick end. But, you know, depending on what kind of threat they pose to others, it might be necessary. Yeah, trying to make hay out of this. And the only reason that I say anything else is because you get these people who stand on their soapboxes, they're moral, like, oh my gosh, this kind of thing, we can't stand for this in our country, and so on and so forth. Like, well, you know, this kind of stuff happens on both sides of the aisle, and you know, if you're going to start criticizing Donald Trump over political violence, can you at least acknowledge the fact that he's been the target of it more than once? I mean, what happened last year in Butler and then in Florida were just the most outlandish and recent actions against him. There have been other attempts on his life, and planned attempts, and threatened attempts. And what happens to those things? They get investigated by the Secret Service and the FBI. And more so probably now than before, because we actually saw... I think actually seeing blood drawn and people's lives taken in such an attempt back in Butler last year, I think that kind of underscored it to people. This isn't a joke. This shouldn't be a joke. But you see where people's sort of moral lines are drawn. Same thing with Padilla. Padilla does a thing, oh, the Trump administration's the villain. Right. But then if you flip the script, oh, Donald Trump is encouraging political violence. Roasted Opinions, hello. Dude protests political violence by shooting several people. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he was a no Kings supporter. He doesn't want any kings, so he's going to be his own John Wilkes Booth, I guess. Scanner Daffley, who committed Weather Underground bombers again? Or commuted, yeah. Don't talk about bombers who got away with it. We won't talk about Karen Bass. Anyway. Yeah, so there's that. Yes. The suspected shooter is a former Tim Walz appointee, Democratic official. I don't care what his motivations are. It doesn't, if you can believe it, whatever he was doing, I don't attribute to the No Kings movement. Because affiliation does not mean guilt for anybody else. So, yeah. Now, again, my only curiosity about his motivations, his affiliations, and elsewise, again, is if there are other planned events or other people that supported in this action. That's it. Again, for the sake of the investigation, that's it. But nothing he did is justified, no matter what side of the political spectrum he's on. And anybody trying to make hay out of this and saying, oh, look, you guys can't do this, or you guys are the bad guys. Like, no, that guy is the bad guy. That guy. His philosophy is not a match for anybody else's. But it was something to see people jump on the MAGA did this is Trump's fault, before the information came out. And then suddenly things got very quiet. And the AP was not willing to put out there anything because it kind of goes against their narrative. Supermutant 299. They have to accept that left are violent and Democrats' stance on this are we are never violent. It's always a cop or it's FBI or it's someone not a Democrat. Say that in a snooty voice. Oh, sorry. I didn't know. I didn't have an instruction before the quote. I apologize. Yeah, anybody can do anything. Like, cheering on Luigi. Oh, yeah, what Luigi did was good. What Padilla did was good. I really have to wonder, with that kind of mentality, if the two politicians yesterday had been Republicans, and it had been a Republican, or a Republican affiliate, that was the suspect. I wonder what the Democrats would be saying right now. Again, these are scenarios I don't ever want to have examples to compare with, but you gotta wonder, given the flip-flop nature of the whole thing. Anyway, moving on, this is a little bit of a callback to a story I was looking at last week and the week before. This deals with the, as far as I know, they still haven't caught the guy. This deals with the killing of the 3 sisters in Washington State. Excuse me. And I wasn't alone in wondering if maybe the Amber Alert system in Washington State needs to be revised. And as I said previously, there's absolutely no guarantee that if an Amber Alert had been issued, it would have changed the outcome in this case. We'll never know. But the circumstances surrounding it, when I read through their criteria previously, I was hard-pressed to figure out why they didn't, but then had no problem issuing a, what was it, a person in distress order or something. Anyway, renewed calls for change in Washington Amber Alert system after killing of Decker sisters. After 3 young Wenatchee I looked this up. Wenatchee sisters were allegedly killed by their father. There was a growing push by advocates to reform Washington's Amber Alert system. 5-year-old Olivia Decker, 8-year-old Evelyn Decker, and 9-year-old Peyton Decker were with their father, Travis Decker, on May 30th as part of their court-ordered visitation plan. I'm still bewildered as to why a court would order or allow unsupervised visitation with a father who is known to have mental illness and PTSD. But anyway, per the order, Decker, an Army veteran who was homeless and struggled with PTSD, had to keep visits within the Wenatchee Valley area and was not allowed to keep the girls overnight. Unsupervised and honor-based for a homeless vet with PTSD. Can't provide them a safe living environment for the time that they're with him, and has known mental illness issues. However, Decker failed to return his daughters to their mother on the night of May 30th. Police were notified, but no Amber Alert was issued. The bodies of Olivia, Evelyn, and Peyton were discovered on Monday, June 2nd, near a campground in the Leavenworth area. The bodies of all 3 girls were found about 75 to 100 yards away down an embankment, and investigators noted zip ties and plastic bags were scattered throughout the area. The children are believed to have died from suffocation. Decker has been missing since, launching a massive multi-agency manhunt. Advocates argue that if an Amber Alert had been issued, the girls might still be alive. I mean, as I say, the might in that sentence is a decidedly small chance. We'll never know, but... from the outset, the Washington State Patrol stated it did not issue an Amber Alert for 2 reasons. Travis Decker had no history of violence with the girls, and there was no evidence of abduction when they were reported missing. Okay, the reasons have not satisfied the girls' loved ones or the community. Quote, yes, the Amber Alert system is broken. It needs to be fixed. We're working on that, said Ariana Cozart, the attorney of the girls' mother. The victims' loved ones are now working to establish a task force to review the state's Amber Alert laws. The goal is to assess which aspects of the system are effective and which need revision. In Decker's case, advocates argue that his mental illness history and military background should have triggered an alert. Quote, with the training and skill that he has and used, that should be an automatic Amber Alert, Cozart said. Oh, I'd say the homelessness and history of mental illness should have been a factor. His military background, I think, is irrelevant. Several Central Washington attorneys have already agreed to join the commission. However, the WSP maintains that the current Amber Alert requirements did not apply to this case. Well, we understand that's their argument, yes. Quote, we all wish we could go back in time, but we can't. We have a system, we have thresholds set, and they're through 50 states. It's a success, but in this case, whatever alert we had did not work, said a WSP representative. The State Patrol issued an endangered missing persons alert, which apparently an endangered missing persons alert, like I said previously, somehow that threshold is lower than an Amber Alert, even though it effectively says the same thing, which sent the girls' pictures to media outlets and displayed alerts along freeways. The only difference from an Amber Alert was the absence of push notifications to people's phones. Why? If that's the only functional mechanical difference, then why? What harm would that have done? This is the question I asked previously. If you had just kind of fudged the requirements on this occasion, and I know this is all hypothetical and speculation, but if you had fudged the requirements and put out an Amber Alert, what harm would have been done? If nothing was wrong, if it was a mistake, if he was caught in traffic, if his car broke down, whatever, what harm would have been done? Whitney Decker, the slain girl's mother, has called for more assistance from police and veteran services, including more readily available mental health services. In the meantime, hundreds of personnel continue to search for Decker, who some believe may be using his survivalist training to hide out along the Pacific Crest Trail. The only difference was push notifications to people's phones. That's the only difference between an endangered missing persons alert and an Amber Alert. And what grand injustice would have been committed if the latter part of this had occurred and there was no problem. I really, really, really want to know. Let's see. I'm getting some shouting in the chat over here. Let me get it up here real quick. Scribelight, another shooting and no Kings protest. Utah suspect in custody. Was that the one from last night? Because I saw the video where someone was marching and they heard gunshots and they ran to cover. And I saw pictures of someone clad in black being arrested by cops. So is that what happened last night, or is this something that just happened today? Let me know. This is Kyle. Hey, Kyle. I blame empathy. Instead of being logical, these people listened to their worthless emotions and felt bad for the guy. Well, again, I don't know. This is what I don't get. They have conditions for what qualifies for an Amber Alert, and yet the only mechanical difference between what they did do and an Amber Alert was push notifications to people's phones. So he didn't tick 2 of the checkboxes for an Amber Alert, but he ticked enough of checkboxes for an endangered missing persons alert, but not enough for people to be alerted that there was an endangered missing person on people's phones. Why wouldn't you do that in both situations? I mean, if there's some law, statute, or otherwise that adds an extra threshold for invading people's phones for such notifications, fair enough, I guess. But I don't get why that would have been a bridge too far. I don't understand that. Jill Powers, that's not empathy, that's horrible judgment. Well, they certainly redefined empathy over the last several years. Kay Roberts, when in doubt, whip it out. Right or wrong, do something. Yeah, you know, I would have, in a situation where you have 3 missing girls and their PTSD homeless father, I would rather, you know, be overzealous in my caution than underzealous on the possibility there's an emergency going on. I'd rather have to apologize for being too twitchy on such things than to, after the fact, understand that we could have done more. That's the other part I don't get about this. It's like, well, let's err on the side of caution, right? If it's a mistake made in good faith. Let's just, because I've seen and read about Amber Alerts before that had been canceled because everyone was found safe and it was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or something. That has happened. So just do it when you got 3 missing little kids. Just, as far as I'm concerned, you can't do enough. Just be safe. You know, if you're gonna take it on the chin for something, take it on the chin for just being overcautious. You know, after like Josh Powell and these 3 kids, and how many other missing kids out there, or you know, the world before we had Amber Alerts. Why do we even have Amber Alerts if not to try to alert people to missing children? I don't get it. Roasted opinions. It's risk management. Homeless parents shouldn't have unsupervised visitation. Well, just I'm starting to turn into Porky Pig. My bewilderment, my base bewilderment still goes back to the court and allowing this guy to have unsupervised custody of those kids given his personal circumstances. You know, no home, no shelter, mental illness recorded. It's not that it wasn't a mystery. Well, he has no history of violence with the girls. You know, it's always the quiet ones, isn't it? Haven't we seen that over and over and over and over again? Okay, set aside his mental illness. He's homeless. You know, and I don't necessarily mark that against his character. But at the same time, it's like you've got 3 little girls and they're supposed to be seen to in their safety and their shelter and everything else. And where is he going to take them for a day? A whole day without any shelter or place to stay? Like, really? Anyway, the whole thing just makes me sick inside. And the, excuses being made for not doing everything you possibly could after 3 little girls are zip-tied to death by their father in a forest. And they still can't find the guy. Part of me hopes he crawled into a hole somewhere and died. A not insignificant part of me hopes he's captured and prosecuted. But, you know, it's one of those things. Did we ever find out why Scribe is a pig? LOL. I don't get it. So, for those of you joining late, just as I talked about at the top of the show, a friend of mine many years ago did a sketch of a piggy scribe using my avatar, my full painting avatar as a guide. And just the other day, she got access to ChatGPT, and she threw this sketch into ChatGPT and said, turn this into a full-fledged painting. And it did, and it's amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. The wonders of artificial intelligence. And I was so struck by it and so pleased in a way that for the sake of today, I decided to use a piggy avatar. To try to lighten things up a bit in several days of darkness and gloom. So that was my motivation. But let's move on. Let's do this one first. We'll do the weird one, and then we'll do the weirdest Father's Day article I think I've ever seen. But first, let's focus on the leaders of orgasmic meditation women's wellness company OneTaste, convicted in forced labor trial. There's so much estrogen dripping off of this headline that I thought it had something to do with birthing, forced labor, like they induced or something. But that is a headline. Just take a moment. Take a moment and digest that headline. Let's go over it one more time. Leaders of orgasmic meditation women's wellness company OneTaste, convicted in forced labor trial. Yeah. Okay. New York. The leaders of a sex-focused women's wellness company that promoted, quote, orgasmic meditation, unquote, have been convicted of federal forced labor charges. A Brooklyn jury on Monday found Nicole Dadone, or Deadone? I don't know, founder of OneTaste Incorporated, and Rachel Churwitz, the California-based company's former sales director, guilty after deliberating for less than 2 days following a 5-week trial. Dang. The two each faced up to 20 years in prison when sentenced later. Good golly. Prosecutors had argued the two women ran a years-long scheme that groomed adherents, many of them victims of sexual trauma, to do their bidding. Boy, I'm getting NXIVM vibes here. Anybody getting NXIVM vibes? They said Deadone, or Deadon, or Deadune, 57 of New York, and Churwitz, 44 of California, used economic, sexual, and psychological abuse, intimidation, and indoctrination to force OneTaste members into sexual acts they found uncomfortable or repulsive, such as having sex with prospective investors or clients. So they generated a brothel. They generated a prostitution ring. Good. Okay, when I saw forced labor, I thought this was going to be some kind of sweatshop thing. No. Oh, it's even worse. The two told followers the questionable acts. The questionable acts. You mean the sexual slavery? AP, are you downplaying this for some reason, like you did with the Minnesota shooter? The questionable acts. Call them what they are. The two told followers the sexual slavery was necessary in order to obtain freedom and enlightenment and demonstrate their commitment to the organization's principles. What principles? Prosecutors said OneTaste leaders also didn't pay promised earnings to the members turned workers. Members turned prostitutes. AP, what are you talking about? Members turned workers and even forced some of them, to take out new credit cards to continue taking the company's courses. Yeah, this is a NXIVM MLM cult. Assistant U.S. Attorney Nina Gupta, in her closing statement last week, said the defendants, quote, built a business on the backs, that's one way of putting it, unquote, of victims who, quote, gave them everything, unquote, gave everything to them, including their money, their time, their bodies, their dignity, and ultimately their sanity. The jury's verdict has unmasked Daydone and Cherwitz for who they truly are. Grifters who preyed on vulnerable victims by making empty promises of sexual empowerment and wellness only to manipulate them into performing labor and services for the defendant's benefit, said Joseph Nacella, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. Okay, so it's not just AP, it's also that. Why are you guys downplaying what they did to these women? Why are you sanitizing it? Just say it, tell it what it is, man. Daydone's defense team cast her as a ceiling-shattering feminist entrepreneur. A ceiling-shattering feminist entrepreneur?
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
A ceiling-shattering feminist entrepreneur who created a unique business around women's sexuality and empowerment. There's nothing unique about running a pimp game. There really isn't. Jesus. Cherwitz's lawyer, Celia Cohen, argued that the witnesses who testified weren't forced to do anything. When they didn't like the organization anymore or wanted to try other things, she said, they simply left. Quote, no matter what you think about OneTaste, I'd never heard of it till today, but I'm not thinking very highly of it. And what they were doing, they chose it. They knew what it was about, she said in her closing statement last week. They chose it. Through psychological and financial manipulation and blackmail, I'm assuming. They chose it. Okay. The fact they are regretting the actions that they took when they were younger is not evidence of a crime, unquote. Oh. I mean, I can't put too much shade on the lawyer. She has to defend her client. I get it. But man, that sounds bad. That sounds low. Real low. Lawyers for the defendants said their clients maintain their innocence and intend to appeal. Very well. Quote, we are deeply disappointed in today's verdict, the lawyers said in a statement Monday. Quote, this case raised numerous novel and complex legal issues that will require review by the Second Circuit, unquote. Okay. Daydone, co-founded OneTaste in San Francisco in 2004 as a sort of self-help commune that viewed female orgasms as key to sexual and psychological wellness and interpersonal connection. I guess that's one way to put it. A centerpiece was orgasmic meditation, or OM, which was carried out by men manually stimulating women in a group. Good God! What the? Whoa! Wait. What? Okay. Oh. Just some guys that they hired? Were the men the individual's significant others? Or are they just helpers? Okay. If there isn't already, I'm going to have to look this up. If there isn't already, there is a documentary on Netflix coming for this. You know, or a Coffee and Cults documentary on this, if not already. What? The company enjoyed glowing media coverage in the 2010s and quickly opened outposts from Los Angeles to London. Portrayed as a cutting-edge enterprise that prioritized women's sexual pleasure, it generated revenue by providing courses, coaching, OM events, and other sexual practices for a fee. Other sexual practices for a fee. There's another word for that, depending on the circumstances. Daydone sold her stake in the company in 2017 for $12 million. A year before OneTaste's marketing and labor practices came under scrutiny. Well, she got out just in time. Oh, except she didn't. The company's current owners, who have rebranded it the Institute of Ohm Foundation, have said its work has been misconstrued and the charges against its former executives were unjustified. They maintain sexual consent has always been a cornerstone of the organization. The company didn't immediately respond to an email seeking comment. I'm just going to no. The answer is no. Just don't. Kiro Soldier, more proof that San Francisco is a cesspool. Well, I tell you what, if just go to events where men manually stimulate women to orgasm. Just, it's an orgasm party, everybody. That's all it is. It's where you go to have that done by strangers for a fee that you're paying us, and then become our evangelists and take our courses and then, entertain our clients and investors so you can pay off your debt to us. Whew. Man. I await the Netflix documentary. I'm going to have to check up on this. I assume, what's that one? There's a couple of channels that do some really good documentaries on things like this. There's Coffee and Cults. There's, what's it called? Like Dark World Happy Mind or something. She does some good stuff. Yeah, shout out to YouTube channels I occasionally watch whose names I'm struggling to remember. So there you go. Multi-level marketing scheme. It has several levels. It's an onion. It's many, many levels just in that one AP story. I can't wait to find out the full details or some first-hand accounts of what went on at these things. Fostonia, thank you so much. Wait, what? What is the address of this party? Asking for a friend. Heh. I don't think they'll be holding any parties anytime soon. Not after this. If the new owners know what's good for them, they won't be holding any more of these parties. These stimulating parties. Boy, oh boy. And, but I always have that eternal question. Once you get deep enough in one of these organizations, don't you know when it's time to get out? And we just seen this happen over and over again throughout history, whether it was Jonestown, the Branch Davidians, Nexium, and elsewise. Brainwashing is a thing. Being blackmailed into submission is a thing. Being shamed and psychologically tortured into doing something that your normal, rational self would not do because you've been, groomed. There's no other term to put it. You've been groomed and otherwise manipulated into it. It doesn't, unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose, depending on how you look at it, it doesn't excuse you from your culpability in what you do as a result of that, unless you can prove, you literally or figuratively had a gun to your head. But man, I just think about Nexium and what's her name from Smallville. Just what if she'd never met? You can actually find it. You can find their first meeting, her and Keith Raniere. You can find their very first meeting was filmed. And not for her specifically, but I just think about how many other situations exactly like that there have existed when it comes to organizations such as these or such relationships. And I just think, gosh, if she just hadn't been there that day, or if she'd missed meeting this person by an hour, how much better a life she might have. And just what poison some people can become one to another. But anyway, Mr. Yes, how are we doing today? Well, I'm doing okay. I'm a pig. Piggy scribe. For the sake of fun. All right, well, as you may all know, today is Father's Day. Yes? If you haven't already, and if you're able to, do take a moment to consider your father. And I hope, I know many aren't, but I hope in your case it's true that your father was a positive influence on your life. And if you are still able to let them know what they mean to you, please do so when you have the opportunity. I'll be doing so after this show because, like I said, I think my father's probably still sleeping. and all to him for the rest. We'll be seeing him next Saturday for a sort of combination Father's Day, other stuff going on. But as it is Father's Day, I couldn't think of a better article to cap off the show with than this one from CNN, which put it up today for Father's Day. Because obviously, when you think of Father's Day, you think of drag shows. Because of you, as a gay teen, his dad didn't support him. Now the pair are bringing drag shows to rural towns. All right. Florence, Arizona. For 3 brief hours one Saturday in May, an unremarkably beige banquet hall in the rural prison town of Florence, Arizona was transformed into a shimmering spectacle of joy. A small but rapt audience cheered and hollered as statuesque drag artists paraded between tables in skyscraping Dolly Parton curls, bedazzled catsuits, and floating ostrich feather shoulder pads. One after the next, performers delivered captivating lip syncs and belted out hits blaring from the speakers as onlookers, several of them attending a drag show for the first time, cheered or sang along. Presiding over it all was Miss Nature, a drag queen and organizer from the annual Arizona Pride Tour. For the last 4 years, Miss Nature has been bringing drag shows to the small town stages and backroad venues of some of Arizona's most rural towns, hoping to create safe and joyful gathering spaces for local LGBTQ people, even if only for one night. Okay. I have a serious question. I am being sincere when I ask this, because I'm honestly curious. How popular are drag shows in general with someone simply on the basis that they're homosexual? You know, a man who is attracted to men, a woman who is attracted to women, or even someone who's bisexual. Everything about the litany of letters here, up to the T, is it just inherent that, like, oh, a drag show, obviously that's my thing? And I'm not even at this moment going to pass judgment on drag shows in general. It's like, whatever, you know, I don't care in that regard. Burlesque drag shows, I've been to similar things myself before, so this isn't shade on that. But I just wonder, why are these classified specifically as involving anybody who just happens to be attracted to the same sex? Like, what is that a reflexive thing? I've never quite understood why they're so directly associated one to another, or that they should be inherently. More pictures. Though the show in Florence is the smallest on the tour with about 50 attendees, it is perhaps the most important for Miss Nature, whose everyday name is Chris Hall. Hall, now 35, grew up as a gay teen in Florence and struggled to find a support system in the sparse conservative town about 60 miles southeast of Phoenix. He was raised by his father, a corrections officer at a local prison, who was at one point so embarrassed by his son's identity, okay, that he said he would make the 16-year-old walk dozens of feet behind him when they were in public. Quote, "I know what it's like as a young gay child not to have any support," Hall told the audience of the May 10th show, adding he would often drive more than an hour to attend Pride events in Phoenix or Tucson. Quote, "Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. Not everybody has the means, the accessibility to do that, and we lose too many lives because of that," unquote. Okay, again I ask, is drag inherent to being attracted to the same sex? Is there no other way you can show support than something like this? I don't know. Andy Masterson is here, everybody. Andy, the Toy Master Masterson. He just, if I'm not getting his Twitters incorrect, he just participated in a physical competition to show off his manly physique, doing things that most people his age couldn't do, and yet I think he was saying something to the effect of, oh, he didn't do very well or something. I think by comparison, Andy Masterson's doing pretty good. But anyway, if you don't know about Andy Masterson, look him up on the YouTube machine for his custom-made toys, as well as his appearances on the Doomcock Show, talking about comic books and all that good stuff. He's been on here a couple of times. Let's see. Advocast Daily. Funny thing is, not all drag queens are even gay. That's also true. In my past, in my college days, for those of you that know my college history, I knew several people who did a lot of interesting things in broadcasting their interests, kinky or otherwise. And the things that they did stereotypically might say one thing about them when in fact it wasn't true at all. So don't judge a book by its cover, as they say. At the same time, I just never quite understood how drag shows are a safe space to be gay. And when I say gay, I mean if you're a female who likes women, you're gay. I know they try to differentiate between gay and lesbian. It's the same thing. It means the same thing. Now, everybody's got to have a category. Everybody's got to have a special title, I guess. Thanks to everything, Julie Newmar. Yeah, that too. Man, that's still it's such a bizarre movie in just that it got produced in the first place. It was entertaining at the time. Snub Earth. Too many seem like autogynephilics. Okay, I'll admit, the poverty of my vocabulary. I reflexively think I know what that means, but I don't actually know what that means. So I'll take your word for it. Davina Duckworth. Weird. Yeah. I mean, my only question when reading this was, okay, is this an all ages event? That's where I kind of get a little because the story was about a 16-year-old, and I'm like, Let's keep going. Standing at the back of the show, nodding somberly as he scooped bags of popcorn for attendees, was the man teenage Chris never would have considered an ally, his father. Okay, well, I'm glad that his father came to accept his son. That's great. I don't know if this is how I would go about bonding, but to each their own, I guess. Terry, who was once, in his own words, one of the worst parents a gay child could have, is now one of Chris's biggest supporters and fiercest defenders, helping his son confront a vocal contingent of people pushing back against his shows. Well, what are their complaints? Specifically, will we find out? For years, Chris has allowed youth to attend many of his tour stops. Okay, well that's your problem right there. That's the questionable decision making right there. I'll tell you what. There was never a burlesque show that I attended that wasn't explicitly 18 and over, at the very least. And often, a lot of them were 21 and up because they took place in like bars and things. So, yeah, if I ever saw an all-ages burlesque show, I'd be like, does someone need to call the cops? For years, Chris has allowed youth to attend many of his tour stops, hoping to provide spaces for those who may feel isolated in their communities. But the decision has led him, like many other American drag artists, to be targeted by conservative and religious groups who believe drag is inappropriate for minors, as well as some who seek to limit the public expression of LGBTQ plus people. Stop. It's got nothing to do with conservative and religious groups. It's got something to do with exposing children to material and ideas and themes and visions that are inappropriate for a child. Children and minors should not be forced to consider sexuality by strangers. I don't know. Does that the images that are conjured up by that, does that seem awkward to you? Does that make you uncomfortable? Forced to confront sexuality by strangers. Yeah, it feels a little weird, doesn't it? or have forced upon them, or seek to limit the public expression of LGBTQ people altogether. The public expression. What do you mean public expression? Like just walking down the street and being gay? Holding the hand of your husband or your wife, that kind of thing? Or are you talking about something that's a little bit more than just public expression? His shows this year attracted more than 1,000 attendees, but have also regularly drawn protesters, been challenged by local town councils, and several have been violently threatened online. Okay, well, that last one, let's not do that. But protests? I'm hearing a lot about how protests are part of the First Amendment, which they are. It's great. And is that a wrong thing? Is that a bad thing? Been challenged by local town councils. The increasingly fraught environment, which I'm sure Chris doesn't revel in just a little bit because this is all about getting attention, has led Chris to make the difficult decision to stop allowing youth to attend next year's tour for now. Oh, he would if he could. He'd let kids into his shows if he could, but I guess I have to make the difficult decision to keep mature and adult-themed things for mature adults. Okay. In the meantime, he hopes the shows can provide an outreached hand to parents just as they once did for Terry. Well, I mean, if you want to have these shows for adults, if you want to invite parents to these things, have a parents' night at the drag show, fine. Go ahead. You know, legal, consenting adults. I have no protest. And that wasn't why I read this article in the first place. I was curious, not so much about the subject matter, but I was curious about what exactly is the controversy here. He hopes the shows can provide an outreached hands to parents just as they once did for Terry, who credits his transformed mindset to a life-changing conversation, a decade of reconciliation, and a tentative wade into the world of drag. This goes on for a long article. I'm not going to read it all. I think I have all the information I need. Is that he would let kids back into his events, as he's done for years previous, but he's going to let it quiet down for now after the pushback until he can get away with it again. Mr. Yes, why is the LGBT plus obsessed with kids? The most innocent explanation I'm aware of was highlighted in that article. It's the projection of one's own past experiences on the idea that there are kids out there, confused teenagers, who don't have an environment of support for how they feel and are being vilified, demonized, exiled from their families and so on. And they want to be the safe haven that they didn't have, right? That's the general argument. And to a certain extent, I guess I can understand that. I just don't understand why this is the venue, in this instance, that you'd be pushing to solve for that problem. I mean, I don't know what else this person does on their free time, but maybe become a youth counselor. And not a youth counselor just simply geared towards a particular sexuality, but a youth counselor in general. And take your experiences of feeling ostracized or alone or whatever, because those are universal experiences that all kids experience. Not necessarily fueled by some, confusion about their sexuality, but just in general. There are common experiences amongst humans that people can relate to one to another, even if they're not exact. That's what empathy is. We talked about empathy earlier. Become a youth counselor. And when you come across a kid who, of their own volition, and not because you teased it out of them or coached them towards it, but of their own volition, express some confusion about what they should do. Their dad is this, that, and the other thing because maybe I like girls or maybe I like boys. Then your personal experience might be able to kick in, but only so far as giving advice. A drag show? A drag show to me does not seem therapeutic. It's literally performative. It's literally make myself the center of attention and try to push a lifestyle onto children rather than helping them as a counselor or through some other meaningful way through a hard time, which all teenagers go through for one reason or another, not just because of what you went through. This is the thing. It's like your experience is not the center of the universe. Right? Your specific experience is not the center of the universe, but what you learned about handling the stressors and the pressures from your experience might be something that could be useful to somebody else in a similar situation and not the same. Stop centering yourself. Start thinking about how it's more of a universal wisdom that you could have expressed. But either way, yeah, so I was curious to find out, like, okay, on Father's Day, this thing, it's like, okay, well, his dad, after many years, came to accept his son's identity. Well, good for them, I guess. Sure, great. Whatever. But then there's the buried lead. We let kids into this. No. Yeah, if you want to be the change you want to see, then be an understanding adult for a child in general. But if you're going to go seeking out or trying to change children into seeing something as appropriate that might not be appropriate for them, because you have an impressionable child. Yeah, this is the thing. Either the kid offers up these things, their ideas, their feelings, or whatever, or they don't. You don't get to impress upon them or push them towards something, especially when they're not your kids. How you decide to raise your kids? Oh boy, that could be a conversation forever. But when it comes to other people's kids, anyway, could go on for a long time on that one. I probably sound more ridiculous than I already do, coming from a piggy scribe. Jill Powers, this guy isn't a counselor. He needs therapy to see why he hated his natural self so badly that he has this delusion. Yeah, well, yeah, the part where he's like, well, I can't have kids attend right now, but someday again. Like, that's a little bit, if that's your main concern, there's something else. There's something else going on there. It's not compassion to allow a mentally ill person to wallow in their delusions. You know, I have only anecdotally I know. I have known people who are drag performers who know exactly where the line is drawn between fantasy and reality. The people who don't, yeah, again, without anything else, that's the ones you got to watch out for. On Frosted Glass's show the other night, one of the articles he brought up, I don't know if he intended it on this. I mean, he said he grabbed the articles specifically for me. I don't know if he intended it on this level, but it had to do with, it mentioned Vampire the Masquerade, the role-playing game, which I have years of experience in, both tabletop and in LARP. And yeah, the people you got to watch out for in both of those situations are the people that cannot separate the fantasy from the reality. The people that get so caught up in the story, their character, or how special their character is, that they can't differentiate between that and real life. Those are big red flags. Big red flags. So same thing in real life with things like this. It's like, okay, you're not actually a man, you know, or you're not actually a woman. I know. I just saw, what was it? We're watching The Pit. My friend and I are watching The Pit on Max right now. It's the hospital drama. And I think we were on episode 4 or 5 or something. And there's this subplot where this transgender woman comes in with a cut on her arm. And she's, you know, they're sewing her up and everything and all this other thing. And then at the end, they're like, oh, by the way, I found several places in the documentation for your treatment where you were misgendered, and I fixed those. And I'm like, you're in a hospital and you're treating a man. I mean, in this instance, it's a cut. It's not something to do with the reproductive system or something dealing with the hormones that a man would generate or something. But for hospital documentation purposes, I think you'd want to have on there that this is a male patient and not see to the sensibilities of this individual to placate their delusion that they're not a man for the sake of medical purpose. It was just so bizarre. And it was such a virtue signal. I was like, that's not... Now, what if somebody has to refer to those documents later in the future or something, and they think that they're treating a woman, and then they make a decision medically that would be harmful to a man, but not to... I don't even know what that might be, but it's just... like, bleh! My brain was just like, what are you doing? You know, conversationally, for the sake of not... whatever, you want to say it's a her, or whatever, she... Okay, fine, whatever. But for the sake of medical documentation, it's like, oh, I corrected the record to make sure everybody knew that you're actually no, you're not. That's the difference between, sort of like polite conversation and reality. That's where the delusion is carried over and perpetuated by outside parties for the sake of what? Looking good? Not upsetting somebody? Come on. It was silly. Kiro Soldier, Scribe-Light, the idea that this wants to bring this, I think I mean this person wants to bring this crap to small town shows how arrogant and intellectually superior he thinks he is, as the left always look down on rural areas. It reminds me, and we read this several months ago. It was an incident that happened during the Will Ferrell documentary they were filming, where he's going across country with his transgender friend. I forget what it's called, Will and something. And they stopped in a Texas restaurant, and everybody was really excited to see Will Ferrell there. And it was like, woo, woo, woo. And then they were like, yeah, 3 cheers for trans rights. And everybody kind of went quiet or went like groaned or rolled their eyes or whatever. And it's like, yeah, they were really welcoming to you. You didn't have to bring all that stuff up and try to push people towards something that's irrelevant. But that's what happened. Right? It's like, oh, you're so much morally superior or something. Just live your life. Live your life and let other people live their lives. Just I can't put myself firmly in the category of a libertarian on all things or something. But in that respect, I'm just kind of like, if I'm not hurting anybody else and I'm not hurting myself, and unless we're in some kind of emergency situation or something, you be you, I'll be me. That's it. Just, I don't try to force my agenda on somebody else or try to shame them or corner them into agreeing with me through some kind of like mild struggle session when I'm having my steak dinner at a restaurant. Oy. Let's see. Hot take, he is not that funny. Who, Will Ferrell? I can kind of take him or leave him. Like in some of his skit stuff back on SNL, he was funny. I've never found many of his movies all that funny. I mean, when he's paired up with John C. Reilly, those guys are pretty funny together. Except for like the Sherlock Holmes movie. So that kind of proves that it's sometimes a fluke. The finer print, Scribe-Light, sup? Me at this hour. But also what's up? Oh, wait. Davina Duckworth. In the real-life Mazes and Monsters incident, they found the missing kid later. He ran away from college. Mazes and Monsters? Pardue. You must find the 2 towers, Pardue. Or whatever. That movie is so weird. Man, that is like the epitome of some of the satanic panic, D&D paranoia of the 80s. Tom Hanks. And what's his name? The other male lead in that show, I always recognize his face from a bunch of 80s stuff, but I don't know his name, and I don't know what he did afterwards. But he wore so many hats in that movie. And I mean literally, it just every scene that kid is in, he's wearing a different hat. Like I think at one point he's wearing like a Kaiser helmet or something. I don't know. But that movie is crazy. Tom Hanks' performance in there is great. Oh, it's so epic. If you haven't seen Mazes and Monsters, you can probably find it on YouTube or somewhere, or the Internet Archive. If you want to see just the peak of D&D satanic panic kind of stuff, man, Mazes and Monsters. That or Skullduggery. Don't watch Skullduggery. If you can help it. I have a copy on VHS. My father found a copy of Skullduggery on VHS at a garage sale. It's in mint condition. It looked like it just came off the shelf in a video store from 1987. Man, I watched it once. I think Red Letter Media might have done it on one time, or Spoonie did or something. Oh, man. Anyway, yeah, movies about role-playing games that turn evil, they're great. They're great. Anyway, that's all a sidetrack. I don't know if you guys want to talk about Vampire the Masquerade anymore. Maybe I'll do a stream just on that sometime. And anybody who wants to nerd out about Vampire the Masquerade can do that. Because as that came up on Frosted Glass's stream yesterday, pardon me, the day before, there were some people who are saying some things in chat about it that I felt compelled to correct because my lore is deeper than theirs. I'm such a snob. I'm such a nerd. Favorite vampire clan? Giovanni. By a country mile, Giovanni. There is so much going on in the story. It's so epic of a story for that clan and how they got to be what they are and all the back and the forth that have put into it. And they're so evil. They are so evil. If you find the second edition clan book for Giovanni and you read the opening story, I think Justin Achille, or Achille, however you say his last name, I think he wrote that one. Those were the days when Vampire the Masquerade had absolutely no limits on just how dark they were willing to go. Oh, golly. Golly, it's crazy. Salubri, weren't the Giovanni wiped out? Salubri, no. The Cappadocians were wiped out. The Giovanni wiped out the Cappadocians. And Augustus Giovanni diablerized Cappadocius and became the head of a bloodline as a result. The Salubri were eliminated by the Tremere, or they weren't, depending on how you see the lore. It could be that Salubri overtook Tremere's body as he sits somewhere and he's all infested with vicissitude and a bunch of other stuff. You could also say that Cappadocius didn't die. He just ascended to godhead, depending on your interpretation of events. I mean, I might be kind of a nerd when it comes to Vampire the Masquerade. I don't know that this is the place to discuss it. But, well, let me give this caveat. I do not know what they've done with Vampire the Masquerade since 5th edition and forward. I stopped at the 20th anniversary edition. If they've changed the meta story, I know they've done something with the Assamites and they've changed their names and tried to, be politically correct or something. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, Vampire the Masquerade was perfect as of 3rd edition. 20th anniversary edition fixed up some system things and some proportionalities and just anything after the 20th anniversary edition, I do not pay attention to. I don't care. That lore doesn't exist. That's all legends as far as I'm concerned. 5th edition can go suck an egg. Anyway, all that being said, that's the Sunday stream, everybody. Make up for not having a Saturday stream. There will not be a Saturday stream next week, not because of any other reason than I'll be out of town visiting my father for a belated Father's Day visit, amongst other things. So, what else is coming up? Tomorrow, unless something goes completely goofy, tomorrow morning, 9:05 a.m. Pacific Time, noon 05 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be on Midnight's Edge in the morning. We'll talk about the box office over the weekend. We'll find out how to Train Your Dragon did, how Lilo and Stitch is still doing, what's upcoming, all that other fun stuff, and news about the entertainment world. And then at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, will be the next episode of DEI Death Watch, taking a look at recent news in the doubling down and downfall of DEI, as well as a little bit of a historical item. I found a promotional video from a couple of years ago from a very well-known social media company talking about diversity goals in a way that in no way, shape, or form should be a red flag for an audit by government officials. It's still on the internet, so it's fair game as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that'll be tomorrow for DEI Death Watch. And of course, Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I will be here for TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk. Will it be a TED Talk that is strangely deleted by TEDx as the last one was? I don't know. Why was it deleted? Don't know. Guess we'll find out, or we won't. But I'll try to find something interesting for next time. Also, And of course, I would forget to do this. Do you guys know I have a Discord server? I have a Discord server. Would you like to join the Discord server? Well, if you'd like to join the Discord server, there's a link in the chat right now to the Discord server. Click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you are not a bot. Actually watch the stream and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is Porky. Just say hello, Porky, and I'll know that you watched the stream. Otherwise, everyone, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. We got up to, I saw at one point, 130 people watching all at once. Oh my gosh. Does that number at all match the number of likes? Well, if not, please do contribute to upping that number. Supposedly, the algorithm loves it. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciated. Otherwise, everybody, I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. If you're able to, and if they are deserving of it, because I know there are some bad dads out there, please do take a moment to let your father know what you think of them and what they mean to you. I'll get that right eventually. I'm about to do so after I sign off here. And I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. That's all, folks.